Hotepu everyone. Welcome to this next video on the Denderah Zodiac. And here, from rituals I performed to the gatekeeper or the gay ancestors, the black African ancestors of the Nile Valley, they have revealed to me details and secrets of this science of the world's oldest calendar, the world's oldest astrology, that of Kemet, African Egypts. And today we're going to cover two basic things, and they're very key for those of you who want to learn the power of this astrology. I'm going to first, on your left here, begin to decode the Western names for these stars, these constellations. And on the other side, in the gray image with the lines here, I'll discuss some of the astounding details encoded deep within the zodiac about the geometry of the universe that was known thousands and thousands of years ago by the Africans in the Nile Valley. And I remind everyone that this is information received from the gay ancestors of Kemet, because many of the astronomers in Kemet were what we call all spirits or gay people, because the heterosexual people basically had children and had to raise families, a very noble and involving task, whereas gay people were more free from the bonds of having to care for a child physically, so we had more free time to muse and to contemplate the more abstract side of life. And that's what made us a very wonderful and rich group for the study of all things metaphysical and spiritual. So in honor of this lineage of Black Egypt, we go forward. So we're going to start here in this image here with the main stars. We're going to ignore these sky blue images for now. They're called the deacons, or the sets of tens. These are the deacons, and they are a completely different mystery. I want to cover all the other stars you see in here in color. We're going to start here with this yellow cow in a boat with a star between its horns. This is the cow called in modern times Canis Major, the big dog, what we called it the cow. And between the horns of the cow is the star Sirius. The boat of the cow is called in modern times Argo, which means the ship. Okay? Next we have this figure in blue. This is a papyrus stalk with a hawk topping it, wearing a double crown. This is not a constellation. Well, there is a constellation that is somewhat close to this called the Camel constellation, but that's not what this really refers to. This actually is like a ley line, a line of power in the sky, or in the meridian grid of the sky. And this line here, this is a pole, and that's a clue that this must be a line of some kind of pole, actually is the major line of the supergalactic grid. And this axis connects the north and south poles of the supergalactic grid. Okay? Meaning, if I took a grid with an astronomy program and said to the computer, overlay a grid of the supergalactic coordinates, there's a major line in that grid, its center line, which will go through the poles of the supergalactic points. So this staff, called a waj or papyrus stalk, means a pole, and the hawk god here is Heru, wearing the double crown of unification. So this is the pole or line that unifies the supergalactic poles. Okay? And I did all these calculations, which you'll see more on this side here with these colored lines. I performed all these calculations after rituals to the gay ancestors, and I confirmed it against a very powerful astronomy program designed by NASA to confirm my angles, confirm my coordinates. So the information you're receiving here has been completely backed by modern Western super astronomy programs. Okay? Next we have here this little bird called Lepus the hare in modern times, and he's pecking at the leg of Orion, who's here in pink. Above here we have two deities called Shu the male, Tefnut the female. This is, or Shu the male, Tefnut the drag queen in our tradition. And these two represent the twins of Gemini. Okay? Now, then we have here this little fellow in yellow. This is the constellation called Auriga, and corresponds to, particularly what's in his hand, the star Capella, a very bright star. Here we see the famous bull of Taurus. Here we see the famous rim of Aries. Here in this kind of purplish color are two stars which represent two stars in the constellation we call Cetus or Cetus, also known as the Kraken, the monster from the depths. If any of you have seen the movie The Clash of the Titans, the Kraken, well, these were the stars that correspond to that creature. And this first star here, this first figure, is a lion-headed woman named Sekhmet, the goddess of the raging power of the sun. This power is the ultraviolet power, the radiation force of the sun, the killing death rays of the sun, we call Sekhmet. And it corresponds specifically to the star in Cetus, the constellation, a particular star called Deneb Kaitos, a most wicked star. And here we have another star shown in this constellation called Menkar. These are two vicious and violent stars. We see attached to Sekhmet's staff are the two fish of Pisces bound. And I won't spend time in this video discussing it, but this whole area of the sky, from the stars of the Kraken to the ram to these over here and the fish, deal a lot with the enslavement of black people. A lot of the predictions about that one day Africans would be terrorized by the whites of Europe were predicted in this part of the sky, because here we see two fish bound or chained to a violent, aggressive force. That's why Pisces deals a lot with bondage, because it's bound to this dark force and has to learn to deal with that and be realistic about what's going on. So then we come here to between the fish of Pisces, we see this little square here. This is called the square of Pegasus. And here we have a purplish circle with the eye of Ra in it, the great hawk's eye. This is known in the West as Triangulum constellation, Triangulum, the triangle. And here we have this kind of yellow goldish donkey that seems to be hanging from a wall of sorts. This is Andromeda. This pinkish baboon represents Cepheus and parts of Cassiopeia. This hawk here with the white crown represents Perseus. So again, if you've seen Clash of the Titans, you see the whole myth here. You see the Kraken chaining Andromeda, who was the daughter of Cepheus and Cassiopeia. And then Perseus, the hero here, this hawk, who wears the white crown of purity, comes to save Andromeda from danger. And here this square is the square of Pegasus, upon which Perseus rode. Those are Greek myths, but they do have, they come from Kemet. And again, I'll discuss that in some other video. Okay, moving along. We have here in this circle a goddess petting some kind of amorphous, unformed looking kind of creature. And these correspond to the stars of Fornax and Sculptor. That's why this creature is kind of amorphous, because it's being sculpted. So this is called Sculptor. Okay. And here we have a green figure, and you'll find there are 5 green figures. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The green figures are planets, they are not stars. And this is the planet of Benos or Venus, who's exalted in the fish. That's why it's right next to the fish. Okay? Next we come to here, this blue figure of a man. Yes? And this man is Cygnus. Cygnus, the swan. And here we have him petting this kind of animal, kind of frolicking animal. This constellation is called in the West Delphinus, the little dolphin, the playful dolphin. Next we have here this headless kind of creature here. This corresponds to Equus, which is shown in the modern zodiac as just the head of a horse. But here we have a headless horse, we could say, or creature. And I have found that this constellation is quite literal, can be quite literal in your chart. For example, Christopher Reeves, who played Superman back in the 80s or 90s, I believe it was. Well, many of you may know that he suffered from a fall from a horse that snapped his neck and made him paralyzed for his life, and it was the source of his untimely dying. Well, Christopher Reeves had the stars of this constellation, Equus, very strong in powerful points of his chart. And he did fall from a horse and lost his head. A most tragic thing to happen. Okay, so then we have here, in this salmon color, the constellation of Aquarius. All the planets in salmon, or this kind of orangey salmon color, are the zodiac, the 12 zodiac signs. Okay? And he's pouring water down here to a little fish. This fish is known as Fomalhaut in the West. Here we have a green figure, which you now know means a planet. This is Harukapet Saturn, Herukahuti Mars, exalted in Saturn's sign of the goatfish here of Capricorn. You see, he's part goat, part fish. Atop him stands the planet that is exalted in the goatfish of Capricorn, called Mars. Harukapet Mars in green here. Okay. Next we have a figure which to your eyes upside down in yellow. This is Hercules holding his staff of clobbering people. Next we have a yellow bird, which is Aquila, the eagle. Then in salmon, this must be one of the 12 great signs. It's upside down. Here you see Sagittarius, the horseman. The archer, he has his bow here, his 2 heads, his crown. He's just upside down. He's winged. Okay. And at the front of his feet, we have here a little boat. Yes? That's the boat of the Corona. Yes? And let's see, here we have the scorpion of Scorpio. This purple figure here would be Ophiuchus. The boat that Ophiuchus sits in, this is Ra sitting as Ophiuchus. The boat is known in the West as Serpens. Ophiuchus means the serpent bearer or the serpent tamer, and this boat would be the constellation of Serpens, what we showed it as a boat. Then we see here a little yellow figure. This is the star Vega, and it shows a little ancestor, a mummiformed person sitting, holding a staff of power, a staff of discipline. And this is Vega in the constellation of the harp or the lyre, L-Y-R-E, the lyre. And that was the harp of Orpheus, who did go into the underworld of the dead to retrieve his beloved through the magic of his music in Hades. So we see the source of the myth of Orpheus from the Kemetic original, which shows this star of Vega, which is a very hypnotic, magical, seductive star, as shown as someone from the dead, the land of the underworld of Hades, what we call the Duat, an ancestral figure, a mumma form. Okay? All right. So next we move on to the scales of Libra. Here we have atop the scales of Libra, this is not really a star. This is a point in the sky that's powerful. Again, as we saw here with this line of the supergalactic meridian line, the not meridian, but the grid of the supergalactic coordinates, its main line here that connects the north to south supergalactic poles. It's not really a star, it's a power point. Same here. This is a young babe, a young boy child, with his finger to his mouth. And this corresponds to what is called the crashing rocks, or the Symplegades. This area of the sky deals a lot with going through a dangerous space or dangerous task where you have to be very careful and you have to sacrifice something to get through it. I know, for example, Barack Obama's Heru Kohuti, his Mars, links to this area of the sky. And he was not born rich. He had to work his way up in life, and he has to go through a great sacrifice, the crashing rocks, to have become president and to have sustained himself for 8 years as such. Also, I know that Mahatma Gandhi has his Binul Sar, known as Venus in the West, and his Herkohuti Mars, also linking to this area. And this meant that Gandhi's Binul Sar faculty, his power of peacefulness in society, combined with the force of Herkohuti Mars, his actual resistance to oppression, he fought with peace. The fighting side would be the Mars, Herkohuti, and the peaceful side would be with Venus, or Binul Sar. He combined those two planets through this area of the sky, meaning that he was willing to take on the sacrifice, to go through the crashing, dangerous rocks that would try to destroy his country, or his ship, quote unquote. He sacrificed himself and gave forth the birth of a new hope, a new possibility. That's why it's shown as a babe, a newborn, new hope, new growth, new birth. Okay? Alright, you see here a little figure atop this area, and there we have Vulpeka, the wolves. Okay? Over here in this blue we have this hippo, this standing hippo, offering some offering bowls. This hippo is known as Lupus, and parts of the stars of Ara, the altar. Okay? And I'll give you a little taste. Right here you see an altar with a head of a ram. This is more directly the constellation Ara, which means altar, for sacrificing an animal. But this is more the lupus side of it, this constellation. Here we have this lion is called Centaurus, often shown as attacking the lupus. Okay? And then we have here the constellation of the star of Boötes, the farmer, the hunter who became a farmer. That's why he's holding this pick, or this hoe here. We have here another green planet, which you know is a planet. This is the planet Harukapet Saturn, exalted in the scales of Libra. Next we have this female figure here in salmon, which is a sign, the great 12 signs, of Virgo the Virgin, holding her staff of wheat. Then we come to this little bird here. Yes? And this little bird is called Corvus the crow in the west. This woman holding the tail of the lion is the star of Leo, a star within Leo, called Zosma. This is the lion of Leo. This little yellow figure, again a seated ancestral mama form, holding that same staff as Vega had, but this time he has a white crown. You see this figure here? Is the same as this figure, except this one has a white crown. This little figure represents the alpha star of Leo, Regalis. This is the star Regalis, shown as the ancestors. And if you know anything about Vedic astrology or the Dravidian astrology, the star of Regalis belongs to an area of the sky they call Magha, what they call nakshatras. We call Kabesu. A nakshatra called Magha, which is owned by the Pitris, or the fathers, the ancestors. And look, we show it here. The same star shown in an older astrology system than India's, of Regalis as an ancestor star. Then we have here the lion on the boat, and this boat is called Hydra, which means water snake, and it's a snake as a boat, which implies water. Then we have these three goddesses here in blue. This first goddess in blue is called Crater in the west, or the great cup, the chalice. It shows a mother bouncing her baby boy, that her treasure is this child. Next we have a figure of a woman holding up two water jugs. Yes, some say they are also two ears of corn. And this constellation is known today as sextants, a tool used for navigating on the seas, a sextant. And these water jugs represent that water. Okay? And then we have here this woman with the bow and arrow representing the star Alphard, which is the heart of the snake. Okay? It's an aggressive force. It's the alpha star in Hydra here. Okay? And we have to make sure we catch these gods up here towards the middle. This green planet, all the ones in green are planets, represents the planet Mercury, we call Sepku, because Sepku is exalted in Virgo here, the wheat. And this green planet here is a hawk-headed god, is the planet of Tehuti Apsheta, which means Jupiter, who's exalted in Cancer. Okay? Then we go to the gods in the northern area, the north sky. This is Draco. This hippo in pink is what we call today Draco. And Draco has at an area called the Cat's Eye Nebula within Draco, which is the ecliptic pole. And that's this pole. This is the ecliptic pole here that Draco does guard. Then we have here the Little Dipper, but we showed it as a jackal, where Polaris, the North Pole star, is. And this jackal is atop a pick or a hoe for tilling the ground. Okay, you see this hoe here, this pick? It's the same thing here, shown here. Okay, so this is the Little Dipper with Polaris, our North Pole star for these days. This thigh, this haunch of the bull, is called the Big Dipper. And this little fella here, this is actually a ram sitting or squatting on top of this haunch, is called Leo Minore. Little lion, the little lion. Okay? So, there you have it. All of the Western correlates of the Kemetic stars. Okay? So, I want to move over to this video here, this image here, to show you what secrets And there are many hidden in this zodiac, the way it was laid out. It was very carefully engineered, very carefully measured to capture what I'm going to discuss in these bright colored lines running through this zodiac wheel. Okay, so we already discussed this big thick yellow one here going from top to bottom. This corresponds to the master line of the supergalactic grid that connects the north and south supergalactic poles. Okay, now this blue line here, if you see it carefully, goes from the shoulder of this hawk to the opposite shoulder here, cutting through Sirius here, okay, and right near Cancer here, and the goatfish. This is the line of the winter. This part of it is the winter solstice line, and this is the summer solstice line. But the supergalactic pole runs right through the eye of Canis Major. The supergalactic pole runs right through that point. It also happens to be, in this age, not in this age, but in tropical astrology, the goatfish and the beetle correspond to the winter and summer solstices, respectively. So this is the solstice line in blue. This is the master grid line of the supergalactic pole in yellow. And if we look at the green line here that cuts across left to right, okay, that green line corresponds to the supergalactic equator. This is literally the supergalactic equator, which cuts through only two signs, and that is the signs of the wheat and the fish. You can see here the green line cuts through the fish here, the two fish, and right here the wheat. It passes right near those two constellations. So that we knew in most ancient Africa the supergalactic pole, which is also this blue line of our solstices, we knew the grid of the supergalactic coordinates, this yellow line. We knew the supergalactic equator, this green line. Okay? And then we go here in this pink line, this fuchsia pink line here. There are two glyphs that were marked. One here, they're very tiny, and one here opposite. Okay? This pink line corresponds to the galactic plane. As in 2012, when we said that the sun was crossing the galactic center. Well, this is the Milky Way plane. This pink line is the Milky Way, the galactic plane. And here Sagittarius, here, is pointing towards the center of the galaxy. You can see it here. It's pointing right towards the center of the galaxy. This is where the sun crossed in 2012. So the pink line, shown and marked out clearly by two glyphs, is the Milky Way or the galactic plane. And then we have the red line, which corresponds to on this side, this shoulder is the spring equinox, and this is the fall equinox. Okay, the beginning of spring here at the ram. You see it cuts through the ram, and it cuts near the scales here for fall equinox. Okay, so in the arm here, this little arm space of this hawk, would sit the Sphinx of Giza, because the Sphinx stares at true east. This red line is true east and true west. It's where the circles of the ecliptic, the path of the sun, crosses the celestial equator, where the sun and the equator cross each other. X marks the spot. That was shown by this line. Okay? So, I did want to give you a sense of the profundity of the information encoded in this. Recall in my first video on the Denderah Zodiac, I discussed these 12 figures surrounding the wheel as the 12 months of the year, and that they have 2 arms each, which are 24 arms shown holding up the Wheel of Time as 24 hours. That also corresponds to the 24,000-year cycle of the Great Ages, the Age of Iron, or the Great Yugas. The Satya Yuga and the Dwapara Yuga is shown by these 24 hands. And this red line clocks another mathematics of the Great Ages, the 25,920-year cycle. So the 24 fingers of holding up this wheel represent two basic things: the 24 hours of the day and the 24,000 count of the great year of the ages, the age of Aquarius, the age of Pisces, the age of Aries. Okay? And an important detail for you astronomy buffs, as this red line corresponds to the age of the time we're in, it's identified by, if the Sphinx was sitting in this arm space of this hawk god, what would he see right before sunrise on the first day of spring? Whatever stars the Sphinx sees, and take this rule to the bank, whatever star the Sphinx sees, and I have other videos that talk about this more in detail, before sunrise on March 21st, basically, the stars the Sphinx would see would be what's called the stars of the age. Right now he sees about 5 degrees Pisces. So we're in the age of Pisces. In about 300 years and change, he will see the stars of Aquarius. Thus we enter the age of Aquarius. The Sphinx defines the age. Whatever he sees on March 21st sunrise tells you what age we're in. But you notice here that this red line cuts through the pole star, the North Pole star. And this is a flat surface, but we're talking about spherical geometry, but we've laid it flat like a map. So the spring point, the first day of spring point, and the pole are actually at 90 degrees. They form an L shape. So to know the age, you have to link it to the North Pole star. Because look, the age, or the Sphinx star, has a wire connection to the North Pole star. So for example, we're in the age of the fish. The fish is about enslavement. This fish is about false religions that take over the world. It's about binding people, binding the fish. The fish are the Africans, binding them to an aggressive power. You see? But this binding in the age of the fish happens while we're under the North Pole influence of the jackal. It's not the little dipper. It's a wolf. And that corresponds to the white people, who began as a master culture, a master cultural force, I should say, with the Greeks and then the Romans. That's when they gained their full force. And a jackal is a predator. A jackal is a scavenger, what you can call a colonist. Colonialism is a kind of parasitism, a parasite that feeds off of other entities, other systems. And Romulus and Remus were the founders of Rome. So you've got to combine this wolf, the Dogon called the pale or the white fox. Fox means a tricky, slick-tongued person. So this marks, if you combine this violent goddess here enslaving through the powers of a wolf and the tricks of a fox, then you understand the age better. If you don't link the age to whatever is our pole star, you're going to be off in terms of analyzing and interpreting what this age is going to bring, because this red line has a current going through the pole, so they are linked. Okay, but that'll be another workshop or video as well. Okay, so this, I believe, has captured most of what I want to say. There's one more detail I want to show you, which I'll discuss more at the workshops and seminars I will do online and here in Sedona about the Zodiac and how to find your zodiac signs from the Egyptian iconography here. You see, the salmon or orangey colored figures are all the famous 12 signs you know. But this would be your zodiac chart, this whole thing, which is much more than 12 constellations. Are you part of the star of Sirius? Is that somehow linking to you? You don't see that in your Western chart. Do you have planets going through the crashing rocks? You don't see that in the Western chart. And we'll discuss at some point the deacons. What deacon controls you? You never hear about that in the Western chart as any serious conversation. So the Kemetic gay astrology system of the Golden Beetle is far richer, far older. And so that will be more in the future. But I want to show you a little theme running through the imagery here about the ages of humanity. Okay? If I were to draw a line from this yellow man of Boötes, okay, up to this yellow boat of Sirius, you'll see a theme from this yellow to this yellow and everything in between. You see a theme of agriculture and food. Here he has a pick and a hoe. Here we have a virgin with a wheat. Here we have a mother nourishing her baby. Here we have a woman pouring water. Here we have hunting. Here we have a cow, which is a main source of food for humanity. Okay? So here we have the cosmic theme of nourishment of a nation. Okay? Now, once we go from that, and here we have Canis Major, also called Ast, the Great Mother. Then we have Ast, Heru, and Osar. This begins the family, the great family conversation. Okay, so from overlapping with this cow, we have the mother, the son, Heru, and the father, Osar. So once you feed your people, then the families can become solid and strengthened. Here we have the twins of Gemini showing, which are brother and sister. So we have a family theme going on here, from this yellow to this purple. Okay? Orion here, this fuchsia. Alright? Then, if we take another overlap from family all the way up to, let's go to, if we start from this yellow, and we had like a little highlighter there that would go all the way up to here, we have the loss of family. So we have family here, mother, son, father, the first trinity, brother and sister. Even here, the Cancer beetle is about motherhood, and the lion is about children. Then we come here to the bull, which is about fertility and plenty, so the family is fed. Then we have the ram, which is violence and aggression. Then we have the stars of the kraken and enslavement, the breaking up of the African family, the black family, by terrorism from the whites of Europe. Okay? Then we have up here Andromeda and Cepheus bound, and then Perseus, the hawk of freedom, trying to free them. Okay? And then we go from here, Hapi the water bearer, and if we arc over to the archer here, we have the forces that reestablish the divine order and balance after the breaking up of the divine family. Hapi Osar, Hapi here, Capricorn brings law and order. This is the God force, God consciousness. This is law and order. This is wisdom. These three here restore the terrorism wrought through this cycle over here. Okay? And then we begin to enter trying to restore everything, but once you start to get back with someone and start to form relationships again around the Scorpion, Libra area, there are the dangers of trying to build a relationship. So we have Scorpion, Ophiuchus. These are poisonous forces. These are toxic forces. Trying to form a relationship and the sacrifices you must make and how we attack each other in relationships. Oftentimes, the dangers of love are shown here in this Libra area of the Scorpion Ophiuchus, the crashing rocks, the scales, and the Centaurus. Okay? But once you resolve that, you work together as a family on your farm to feed your, to build a home, to nourish the family, and you see a beautiful story that happens both on the individual level as well as on the great epics of human development. Here, Boötes was going from hunting and gathering to farming. There's a major transition in human culture. So we see encoded in this a storyline of the development of civilization over great epochs of time. So, in recapping, we saw here the Western names of the African constellations. We saw the green planets are in their exalted positions, which means exaltation was preeminent in Egypt. And I'm telling you, in your chart, exaltations are key to know how to work with them and what they really mean in your chart. They represent very powerful forces. We saw here the supergalactic lines known, the galactic lines, the solstitial and equator lines of the equinoxes and solstices. All of these high levels of astronomy and astrophysics were known by these gay Africans in Black Egypt. And so, I pray this inspires you to want to learn about your Kemetic astrology, how it's different, because this will be your chart on the left here, and we would connect your chart to all of the stars shown here, not just the 12 peach ones and not the 12 salmon colored ones, but much, much more, much deeper. And we do provide these charts for you. Just email us at the link below, and stay tuned for workshops and retreats online as well as here in Sedona on how to work your spirit through your psychology of the charts of Kemet. So, again, I wish to give praise and thanks to the god Apwat, who opened the way to this information being revealed once again. And I wish to thank the gay ancestors who appeared during the ritual drumming, during our ceremonies. Many of them appeared as African couples, gay couples, ancient ancestral couples came, and they wanted to make clear this information and to share it with you all. And remember, every group has a gift to give. There is no need for bashing or oppression or belittling other groups. The heterosexuals have a gift to give to the world, so we should honor that gift. They give us the gift of families and of children. The gays have a gift to give, the gift of the true deepest mysteries of spirituality and metaphysics. Every race has a gift to give. Every animal on the planet has a gift to give. Rather than looking at what we want to exterminate or bash or do away with, let's step from that to a bigger perspective and ask ourselves, what do gays have to give the world? What is the gift they have? What is the gift of African people? The gift of Native American people? The gift of everything in the forest? And we have to come together and unite in love and respect each other. No one has the right to hurt anyone else to make themselves look big. Only a very small person does that kind of act. So we thank the gay ancestors from Kemet. They brought forth this gift. And the more you have gratitude for them, the more they will bless you with the secrets and the understanding of your stars, of your destiny, and of the reason you came back to Earth, the gift you promised to give to the world, to your ancestors, and to your own divinity. So, may you enjoy the stars of Africa. Dwawend Hotepu.